Victoria leaned against the cold, rough wall, her back pressed firmly against its surface. Ashley stood by her side, their bodies tense and hearts racing. The air was heavy with a sense of impending danger as they awaited Rex's signal, knowing that he and Justin were positioned somewhere on the opposite side of the building. This was new for all of them. They had never attempted to take out a nest when they knew humans would be present. For this Victoria was grateful Grendel and Milo wasn't there on time that night. They had proven themselves strong. But Rex was right, Grendel was a loose cannon and was unpredictable. The humans may have put themselves in this situation, but that didn't mean they should die for it. The night had quickly descended upon them, making this mission out of the ordinary for another reason. This granted the vampires an extra measure of strength. However, the hunters took solace in the fact that the bloodsuckers were preoccupied within the building. Unlike the previous nest they had eliminated, caution was imperative this time. They needed to ensure they didn't inadvertently harm any humans, even though these individuals willingly participated in the grotesque act of allowing vampires to feed from them. Victoria couldn't help but shudder at the thought of these humans, willingly placing their lives in such perilous danger. The place was reminiscent of an opioid den and a brothel. Most of the people were half naked and high, lounging around, oblivious to anything around them. This made it particularly hard to have any empathy for the willing participants. But this was a fight against the vampires, and regardless of how foolish they were, at the end of the day they were still humans. Her focus sharpened, Victoria eagerly awaited the signal from Rex, her gaze fixed on her phone. A silent text message arrived, causing a surge of adrenaline to course through her veins. It was time to make their move. Victoria and Ashley swiftly swarmed into the room from one side, while Rex and Justin advanced from the other, effectively blocking all escape routes. Armed with the new weapons provided by Miller, this raid felt entirely different. For the first time, they were executing their plan in the presence of humans, no matter how morally reprehensible they might have been. The hunters unleashed a barrage of water projectiles, the modified water guns in Ashley and Justin's hands far more sophisticated and expensive than the ones typically found at children's birthday parties. The room erupted with the splattering sound of water hitting flesh as they soaked everyone in sight. Rex and Victoria were responsible for delivering the lethal blows, shooting anyone who started to smoke from the water. It was an unsettling sight, even more disturbing than anything Victoria had witnessed before, as screams echoed from the humans throughout the room and chaos ensued. Just when Victoria thought they had the situation under control, several humans, realizing that the hunters' weapons were nothing more than harmless water, launched themselves at Ashley and Justin, overpowering them. In the midst of the ensuing confusion, a few vampires managed to escape, slipping away into the night. Casting a quick glance around the room, Victoria noticed that the majority of those left behind were human. Determined not to let any more vampires flee, she took it upon herself to pursue them. As Victoria sprinted through the dimly lit alley, her heart pounding in her chest, she unexpectedly collided with Grendel. For a few seconds Grendel's firm grip held her in place as she tried to regain her bearings. With a swift glance around, she scanned the surroundings, searching for any trace of the escaping vampires. "You're late," Victoria mustered, her voice tinged with a mixture of relief and reproach. As her eyes met the gaze of one of the vampires, she noticed him freeze at the end of the alley, his eyes locked not on her but on Grendel. Confusion washed over her. Why wasn't he fleeing like the others? Before she could process the situation, she saw the look the vampire was giving Grendel, a mix of spite and rage. In that fleeting moment, Grendel's eyes darkened, a seething hatred emanating from him with an intensity she had never witnessed before. A surge of concern coursed through Victoria, prompting her to open her mouth to question him. However, before she could utter a word, Grendel turned towards her, his face adorned with a disarming smile. "Yeah, sorry about that," Grendel said, his voice laced with an air of nonchalance. "Looks like you had already begun the fun without us." Releasing his grip on her, Grendel let Victoria go, allowing her to regain her balance. As Milo approached the two of them, a sense of relief washed over Victoria. Despite the lingering questions in her mind, the presence of the two of them provided a small measure of comfort amidst the chaos unfolding around them. Any escaping vampires wouldn't have a chance with the three of them. "Is the guy with the weird gloves with you?" Milo asked as he approached the two. "Gloves?" Victoria asked, her voice tinged with confusion. The rest of their group remained inside the building. Who was he talking about? In a sudden and shocking turn of events, Miller emerged from the shadows, pushing Milo aside with an urgency that pierced the tense silence. Without hesitation, he closed the distance between himself and Grendel, his intentions masked by a grim determination. Before Victoria could process what was happening, a sickening crunch of bones shattered the air, sending a shiver down her spine. Miller now loomed over Grendel, his face contorted with a mixture of anguish and determination. Echoes of a ripping sound reverberated through the alleyway as Miller's hand, encased in the industrial-strength gauntlet, plunged mercilessly into Grendel's chest. The scene played out in a nightmarish tableau, each second stretching into an eternity. Wet gurgling sounds escaped Grendel's lips as he attempted to pull away from Miller, his body instinctively rejecting the intrusion. But all resistance was futile. In an instant, Grendel's hands dropped limply to his sides, and a lifeless gaze consumed his eyes. Miller withdrew his hand, revealing a mass of bloody tissue clutched within his grip, Grendel's heart. Victoria's heart pounded in her chest, disbelief and sorrow coursing through her veins. What had just happened? Why was Miller here? And why had he taken Grendel's heart? She was left with all questions and no answers, leaving her paralyzed. Before Victoria could utter a word, Miller was propelled backward, crashing into the wall with an incredible force that shook the surroundings. The impact dislodged the lamp above, causing it to sway and casting eerie shadows amidst the crackling tension. It was as if an unseen force had thrown Miller back, leaving everyone bewildered. But her attention swiftly shifted to Milo, who stood over Miller with an air of raw power and dominance. His hand clenched tightly around Miller's throat, his other hand pinning Miller's free hand against the wall. A surge of dark energy emanated from the pair, enveloping them in an ominous aura. "Give it back." Milo's voice reverberated with an intensity and fury that surpassed anything she had ever seen from him before. Victoria felt a chill crawl up her spine, witnessing a side of Milo she had never imagined existed. His anger seemed to radiate from deep within, fueled by an insatiable desire to reclaim what was taken. Miller, despite his disadvantaged position, wore a twisted smile, seemingly reveling in the unfolding chaos. His eyes met Milo's, a gleam of fascination and amusement dancing within them. "Now, isn't that something? You're something new, aren't you?" Miller's voice dripped with sinister delight, his words hinting at a deeper understanding of Milo's true nature. In response, Milo pulled his head back before forcefully slamming it against the wall, an act of brutal determination. "I said give it back." His words echoed with a mix of desperation and unyielding resolve. Victoria strained to observe their confrontation, but the encroaching darkness, like an ethereal fog, swallowed both combatants, obscuring their figures from her sight. The mysterious darkness intensified, shrouding the alley in an atmosphere of foreboding. Victoria stood frozen. The clash between Milo and Miller had transcended the physical realm, delving into something far more enigmatic and dangerous. As the ephemeral fog dissipated, revealing the aftermath of the intense confrontation, Miller lay sprawled on the ground, subdued and defeated. Meanwhile, Milo, carrying an air of solemn determination, made his way back to Grendel's lifeless form, cradling the precious heart delicately in his hands. In the midst of everything that was going on, Rex, Ashley, and Justin emerged from the building, watched on with disbelief, frozen in shock. Milo crouched down beside Grendel's motionless body, his touch gentle yet unwavering. With great care, he eased Grendel's heart back into the cavity that remained, aligning it precisely. As Milo withdrew his hand, a profound transformation began to unfold. Tremors coursed through Grendel's revived form, his body responding to the reunion with his heart. Milo held him close, supporting his head as he choked up blood. Victoria, observing the scene unfold, felt a profound sense of realization wash over her. She had known that Milo and Grendel shared a deep bond, but witnessing this extraordinary display chilled her. At that moment she knew neither of them could have been human. But for the briefest of seconds, none of that mattered. In that moment, the complexities of their mission and the secrets they harbored seemed insignificant. The bond between Milo and Grendel transcended the boundaries of anything she had ever seen, their connection etched with a depth of emotion that moved Victoria to her core. As Grendel's consciousness gradually resurfaced from the depths of uncertainty, his survival instincts propelled him to seek solace in the presence of Milo. Gasping for air, he reached out, his trembling hand yearning for the reassurance of his companion's touch. Milo held him close, enveloping him in an embrace of unwavering support. With one arm wrapped protectively around Grendel's trembling form, Milo pressed their foreheads together, their heads nestled intimately against each other. In this tender moment, their shared bond became a lifeline. However, the tranquility was abruptly shattered as Miller made his move. Swiftly approaching Milo from behind, he seized him by the head, forcefully tearing him away from Grendel's grasp. Before Milo could react, a sharp pain pierced his neck as Miller injected a syringe into his flesh. Within seconds, Milo succumbed, his body succumbing to the immobilizing effects of the injected substance. Grendel, fueled by a surge of adrenaline, managed to regain his strength, pulling himself up. As he reached out, an unexpected projection emerged from his hand. In the same instant, a spark ignited from the street lamp above them, casting a haunting shadow over Miller. Miller, undeterred by the unfolding chaos, seized Grendel's arm with a vice-like grip, deliberately contorting it in a grotesque manner, causing his elbow to bend in a direction nature had never intended. Grendel howled in pain, his features twisted in anguish. Unrelenting in his assault, Miller then seized Grendel by his hair, asserting control over his battered form. With a callous disregard for his well-being, Miller plunged a second syringe into Grendel's vulnerable neck, injecting the unknown substance into his bloodstream.